Hi, welcome to today's presentation where I'm going to give you a brief historical overview of the development of kinesiology. This lecture will be covering Chapter 2, the historical development of kinesiology from the textbook I co-authored, Energetic Kinesiology. So I'm Tanya O'Neill McGowan, and it's almost 30 years since I discovered the joy of kinesiology. And I attended my first workshop of kinesiology in 1996, and I did training in a few of the different kinesiology modalities, energetic kinesiology modalities that existed at that time. But the large majority of my career, I ended up working in kinesiology colleges in Australia, first part-time with the Kinesiology College of Energetic Sciences, and then full-time with O'Neill Kinesiology College in Perth, Western Australia. I've been teaching kinesiology for over a decade and presenting scientific information related to kinesiology. And it was my interest in understanding kinesiology and bringing professionalism and depth to the training of energetic kinesiology that led me to co-author the first proper textbook in our field with Dr. Charles Krebs. And so now I'm sharing that awesome information that we were able to compile into a series of presentations. So just to help you understand, there are different types of kinesiology. So academic kinesiology is taught in universities across the world. They don't call it academic kinesiology, they call it kinesiology. And so people learning physical therapies at university will do subjects called kinesiology, where they study muscles and muscle function and how muscles help the body move. Then there is applied kinesiology, which is taught in chiropractic colleges. So chiropractors may use applied kinesiology in their clinics. And so they use muscle testing as a diagnostic tool within the chiropractic framework. And then from applied kinesiology evolved what we now term energetic kinesiology. So it's a group of kinesiological systems which use biofeedback from an indicator muscle. So we use a muscle to provide information about what's going on for the client, and then we use various correction techniques to help bring their body back into balance, and that's taught in various forms throughout the world. In Australia, it's taught in kinesiology colleges, and it is in some other places in the world. There are also workshops available worldwide as well. So this is an overview of the timeline that this lecture is going to take you through. So in the early 1900s, Robert Lovett developed muscle testing. That was then refined and published by a husband and wife team, Kendall and Kendall, into a textbook that is still in publication to this day. A chiropractor named George Goodhart came across this muscle testing and integrated that with a number of other things into his chiropractic work. He then shared that with a number of chiropractors, and the field evolved. One of those chiropractors was John Thie, who then took the basics of applied kinesiology, put it together, and shared that with everyday people, the general public, in what is called Touch for Health workshops. Those Touch for Health workshops went global, and a number of people who attended those workshops then got inspiration to develop their own kinesiology modality, a way of working with muscle testing and then adding in other things to help people with different aspects of functioning and create general health. And so in the 1980s, a flurry of different kinesiology workshops evolved across the world, and that formed the basis of what we now call energetic kinesiology. It was the 1990s when the first government accredited college came into existence in the Australian state of Victoria. That college was created by Charles Krebs, together with Karen Sedgman and Christopher Rowe, and they started delivering the first government accredited kinesiology qualification, diploma in holistic kinesiology. That led to a number of other places in Australia creating colleges and delivering diplomas of kinesiology. In the 2000s, it was actually 2007, the Australian government included the Diploma of Kinesiology in their health training package, really bringing energetic kinesiology into that very professional space, which was very exciting for those of us working in the field and delivering kinesiology training. So going back to the beginning, Robert Lovett in the early 1900s, he was a Boston orthopedic surgeon and he developed the science of manual muscle testing. He did this as a way to work with people suffering from polio and nerve damage to assess the level of their disability. He created 5 levels of muscle grading to assess the level of dysfunction that had been caused by nerve damage or polio. And so it really was the beginning of the field of kinesiology with a way to test muscles and their function. Husband and wife team Henry and Florence Kendall, who were physical therapists, also working with polio patients, modified and systemized Lovett's ideas of manual muscle testing. Then they published their work first in 1949 with the book Muscles, Testing and Function. And when I looked this up online, it's actually still in publication, with the latest edition having been released in 2023. So it really is a very foundational text for the field of academic kinesiology, which, as I said earlier, they just call kinesiology. And so they created an in-depth analysis of the motion of muscles and the way they move joints. And they were really founders of the field of physical therapists. They were instrumental in establishing standards, licensing procedures for physical therapists. And Florence Kendall was even coined the mother of physical therapy. She is very well respected in that field and very much supported women working in those kind of manual therapies. And so just like Lovett, they were groundbreaking people in the area that they were working, which is really the model of all the people in these development of kinesiology. They really struck out and worked hard to create a new way of helping people in healthcare. A chiropractor, George Goodhart, came along, and in the 1960s, he took an interest in the work of Kendall and Kendall and began to use muscle testing in his practice. So Charles, my co-author of the textbook, described Goodhart as being, he was a very eclectic reader, but he had this ability to synthesize ideas that were already in existence, but to synthesize those ideas in new ways. Goodhart took the work of Kendall and Kendall, Frank Chapman with his neurolymphatic reflexes, Terence Bennett, an osteopath, with his neurovascular reflexes. He also developed his own technique of working with the origin and insertion of a muscle. And he also brought in traditional Chinese medicine ideas around meridians and sedation and tonification acupoints that you could use to affect muscle function. And so he really brought in a number of different ideas together for strengthening muscles that, when tested, were what he called weak, unlocking. And so it really started to create a whole new way of working with people, which was really profound and a step forward in the field of kinesiology. So he called it applied kinesiology because it took these academic ideas about muscles and function and actually applied them in a healthcare setting. There were a number of chiropractors who started to learn and work with Good Heart in the field of applied kinesiology, really starting this whole new field, which is still taught to chiropractors worldwide today. One of the major breakthroughs or ideas that Good Heart brought into the world was this idea of a muscle organ gland meridian complex. So when an organ muscle is stressed, the muscle may develop an imbalance, weakness, which is shown by an unlocking muscle test. The Chapman reflex point may become tender, the Bennett reflex point may become active, and the associated meridian flow may be disturbed. So when a muscle tests weak in applied kinesiology, the issue could be in the muscle itself, it could be in the organ/gland function, or it could be in the meridian. And so there are techniques for balancing all three aspects of this complex. And that was really a profound concept that still exists all the way through to modern kinesiology and is used as a fundamental concept in both applied kinesiology and in energetic kinesiology. So a major leap forward that Good Heart brought us. One of the people who learned applied kinesiology and was involved with Good Heart was Alan Beardall. And he took the work in applied kinesiology even further. He developed over 250 specific muscle tests by isolating various divisions of the major muscles. So instead of having one test for a major muscle, each division had its own specific test, so that you were putting in what it's called its position of maximum mechanical advantage. And so that was a huge project and added a lot to our field. And he published that work in 5 volumes of muscle tests. Alan was also the originator of some of the other core concepts we use in the field of energetic kinesiology. So that's why I'm mentioning him here in this lecture. So he was the originator of the concept of the body as a biocomputer, which very much fits with our field and is often used when discussing various ideas in kinesiology. He also developed a means for retaining energetic information over time, which he called block and advance, but generally it's now called pulse lock, and that's how we termed it in our textbook. And he also discovered hand modes, which come from the yogic mudras, various positions of the hands, and he discovered that accidentally and then articulated an idea about how it could potentially work, knowing that it did work. So there's some of the core techniques that have been brought into the field of energetic kinesiology. So I wanted to mention Alan Beardall here. Really, the foundation of energetic kinesiology comes from John Thie. So he was a chiropractor working with Good Heart in the development of applied kinesiology. He was in that inner circle, and John realized that if everyone could balance their energy on a regular basis, then they could maintain their own health more effectively. Like, he could see the fruits of a way to help people prevent ill health. And so he took the basic techniques in applied kinesiology and developed a small number of workshops for lay people. And he called that work Touch for Health. And the reason he did that was his view was that too seldom in Western society are we touched for health. And so it was a really beautiful gift that John Thie gave to the world in these workshops to help people maintain their health and well-being. He began teaching these touch health workshops in the 1970s. They were intended for people to balance their family and close friends and help people and themselves stay healthier. The Touch for Health muscle balance procedure included 14 muscles, one for each of the meridians, major meridians, which have their own acupoints. And the muscle was manually tested to assess its state of function, whether it locked or unlocked, which they called strong or weak. If the muscle was weak, then you'd apply some basic applied kinesiology techniques to strengthen it. And once it would stay locked under manual muscle testing, then you'd move on to the next muscle. And when all 14 muscles were balanced, this restored balance to the meridian energy system too. So you were maintaining the health of your meridian system, which maintains health of all the body's physiological functioning. So it really was a beautiful gift that he brought to the world. And it was really through these Touch for Health workshops, then going out into the world and being taught all over the world in the 1980s, that the field of energetic kinesiology really came to be. Various people attended a Touch for Health workshop, they got inspired, and they created another stream of kinesiology, what we call a kinesiology modality. And there are many of them. I know not all of them are included in this kinesiology tree from our textbook. I apologize to those who feel affronted by that. It really was just meant to be a little glimpse of some of the earlier forms of energetic kinesiology. What has happened since then is that there's lots of combining of this work into a more structured professional programs of kinesiology around the world, so that people learn not just one kinesiology modality, but many, to become a well-rounded kinesiology practitioner. So I just want to mention Richard Art, who developed Applied Kinesiology, because he introduced a number of these different ways of working with muscles. So he introduced the idea of over-facilitated, not just the under-facilitated states of muscle, which you get from an unlock. So stress can be hidden in a muscle, and so it might appear balanced because it stays locked. But when we investigate further, we find it actually no, it's over-energized state, which is just as detrimental as an under-energized state showed with an unlocking muscle. Richard also developed a large number of correction techniques, really comprehensive techniques, including holographic balancing, acupressure application of the law of 5 elements from traditional Chinese medicine, and using acupressure to correct the chakra system and the Tibetan figure eights, as well as a number of other correction techniques. He also developed in-depth procedures for balancing the human anatomy and physiology, so that we can create long-term physiological changes for our clients. And he also developed the idea of entering powers of stress. So when an indicator muscle becomes overwhelmed because we've got so much energetic information in our circuit, there are ways for downloading that stress, allowing us to continue working effectively with our clients in a session. From Richard's work, then came my co-author Charles's work. He studied with Richard for a number of years and then added and developed more techniques to the field. And he developed a number of ways of working with the acupuncture meridian system. But the core component that he added to the field of kinesiology is what's called LEAP, the Life Enhancement Acupressure Program, originally called Learning Enhancement Acupressure Program. And one of the things that set Charles and Richard, apart from some of the other developers in kinesiology, is the level of clinical research that they did to make sure that what they're developing could be applied to people, lots and lots of different types of people, that it didn't just work with some people and not others, that it really got those long-term results when people applied it in clinic, and that the techniques could be taught to anyone and get the same results. It wasn't just because they developed it that they had some special gift. It's actually, their techniques were profound because they can be taught to anyone and applied to anyone, and they get amazing long-term clinical results. The other reason I'm mentioning Charles in this history is because he was instrumental in developing that first kinesiology college. One of the things we bonded over, Charles and myself, was our desire for the field of energetic kinesiology to be taken seriously as a professional healthcare modality. And one of the leaps forward that Charles created for our field was that kinesiology college with government accreditation that he created together with two colleagues. And Charles was also very instrumental in supporting a number of other people in developing new kinesiology techniques. So, he very much supported and aided a number of the things that are in the field of energetic kinesiology in our modern form of it. He helped by doing clinical research, supporting them, discussing ideas. And so I feel like he really was one of the leaders in sharing good quality professional kinesiology training worldwide. And I thank him for that because he was instrumental in a number of colleges worldwide thriving and even being created in the first place. So just to summarize the difference between energetic kinesiology as a field, some of the defining techniques include that we use a generalized indicator muscle to indicate information relevant to the whole person's body-mind complex. So we're able to get information in a more general way from muscle monitoring. We use non-verbal mechanisms for gathering information and retaining information during a balance, some of which I've mentioned in this lecture, but there are others, including using specific acupoints to provide information, combining hand modes with acupoints in what we call acupressure formatting, which was developed originally by Richard Art and expanded upon by a number of people in the field. We also use a process called age recession to help gather information that's pertinent to what the person is working on, and to help them get a conscious awareness of why they're creating these issues that they're working through. That really helps you be different out there in the world if you understand the underlying stories around why you're creating this way of being in the world that isn't working for you. If you're consciously aware of what's going on, then you can be different in your everyday life. You can choose to make different choices. And so that's really a fundamental technique that creates great change for people. Our field has a range of energy-based corrections that help re-establish balance within all the systems of the body, so that the body can ultimately heal itself. And then in more modern forms of energetic kinesiology, there's a process called kinesiology setup. And so that's a way of us accessing various structures and functions of the human being, and then being able to release stress from those structures and functions. And by doing that, we're able to create long-term change for people physiologically and psychologically. And so that's really profound as well. And so we have all these beautiful core techniques that we use in kinesiology. And I'll be talking further about a number of these in future presentations. So please do join me for that. The true nature of disease and dysfunction is a loss of connection between the part of the body that knows what the problem is and the part of the body that has the information needed to re-establish homeostasis. Energetic kinesiology is effective at providing the connection and information needed for the body to heal itself. So just sharing you the last little piece of wisdom that Charles and I included in our textbook. Hopefully that inspires you to delve more into the field of energetic kinesiology. Thank you very much for listening to today's presentation. I am sharing a number of presentations based on chapters and sections of the textbook Energetic Kinesiology. While I'm sure they'll be of great benefit to people in the field of kinesiology, they would also be of interest, many of them, to people in energy medicine in general. So please do share them far and wide. You'll find them on YouTube. The channel is called Energetic Kinesiology Textbook. Please do subscribe to the channel, like this video, so then it's going to be shared out to more people. You can find me on Facebook under Tanya O'Neill McGowan, and please do support this project, this work I'm doing via Patreon, where a few of the videos will be available for a small fee. Thank you very much.